Camberly,
Yes.
I really struggled with where to begin with you. So my first question is, who are you?
Oh my goodness.
Who
Okay.
are you?
Oh, well, I'm a Kanab native. Grew born and raised here. I have roots here. My grandpa Rex started the rock shop down here on the corner of town.
Mm-hmm.
That's played a very big part of my life, as being rooted right here in Kanab. My husband tried really hard to get me to be a Coloradan for about 10 years, but that didn't fly.
Right.
During COVID, I had the opportunity to move back here, and I jumped at the chance.
And obviously your husband jumped too.
He did. I literally gave him, I'm like, hey, I'm moving to Kanab. You're welcome to come with me if you'd like. But he did. He followed. Yeah.
Okay.
But I love Kanab. That's where I start.
That's who you are. That's where
me.
you start.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously that was a huge risk
Oh yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
And I see you, I'm not speaking of your whole family, but I see you as probably one of the most creative people I know. You do it all. So that's where I was trying to, like, I was struggling with who are you, because you do
Right.
so much.
Mm-hmm.
So first off, when you first moved back, you had chisel and pen, and tell me a little bit about that.
So growing up here, and obviously because you're a Kanab
Mhm.
person too, I remember the highlight of my week was heading to Fredonia to go to Ray McCormick's tumble class, because that's all that there was to do for kids. And when I came back to Kanab, there was, obviously had grown, we had amazing businesses that had jumped in with gymnastics and dance and everything else. And I saw that there wasn't a really big group filling for people who were artistic.
Right.
My kids were artistic, so I was
Right.
like, why don't I open up a little studio that kind of gives kids a chance to be messy outside their house? Because if my kids paint in my house,
the world needs people like
right.
you.
If kids paint in my house and they spill paint, I'm furious.
Right.
It's my house. So I wanted to create a safe space for kids. If they spill paint, they could literally, so some of my kids would spill during class, and we just wipe it up, and I would actually have them sign their name to the floor, because I'm like, it's part of
You
the
were
process
allowing
of being
them to be
creative.
there.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to create kind of a fun artistic space where kids could just be messy.
Right.
And the parents saw that, and they kind of jumped on board with it.
Right.
So,
well,
yeah,
it
was fun.
evolved. I
It
mean,
did.
you did other classes for
Yeah.
adults.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many times
I
we
did.
purchased flowers from you for
Flowers.
dances.
Yep. Exactly.
I, in my business, have used you.
Yeah.
You've painted beautiful, I'm going to say portraits, but they're not portraits, of the
Yeah,
houses
the
that I've
houses.
sold, or of clients that have
Mhm.
moved away from their
Right.
longtime houses. And I gave you a picture, and you kind of like made this story.
Yeah, it's fun.
And those, I think, have been very endearing to my clients.
Thank you.
And I appreciate that
Yeah.
you were so creative and able to do that.
I love capturing things like that. Like I was going to see pictures behind me. I grew up loving the landscape, and everybody sees it differently. So, and that's what I teach the kids too, is be like, oh, so you see this bush as the focal point of this thing, and I would have ignored the bush, you know?
Right.
So embrace it and just be happy with it, and sometimes you see things that other people don't see, and that's a great way to live life.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
So yeah, I do water painting, and I do a little bit of acrylic. I give my grandma Nada Brown a lot of credit, because I'm a lot like her. If you knew Nada, she dabbled in every kind of art form there was. She never perfected any of them, and that's me. I dabble in all of it, but I couldn't say that I'm a perfectionist at any of them either.
I see you as a perfectionist, because you
Aw.
do things that I can't even possibly imagine. Just rewind to last year at our Lariat review. I mean, that was
so
hey,
fun.
do you think you could help us? And the next thing I know, we have an Aladdin castle in the gym of the high school, and you built it in your
I
living
love it.
room.
I did. In my 20-foot by 20
Yeah.
foot living room.
And today when we walked in, there were also cardboards of you
Yep.
getting ready to do.
Yeah, props for
Props.
the junior theater group here in Kanab.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about that.
So I love every opportunity I have to get messy. And so in the last few years, I've been partnering with Red Rock Studios.
Okay.
Their youth theater group. They do a big spring production. And I just literally say, hey, what do we need for props? And they kind of tell me the story, and they give me the script and what they need. And I just kind of go to town doing it. So it's fun. They give me a lot of liberty. I take a lot of liberties with it. But then with that, because we have a lot of spring productions, like with Larry Review, the high school prom sometimes pulls into play. I like to coordinate with people because things like that get expensive.
Right.
So if we can pull our resources and help each other out, then we can.
Because like much appreciated.
Right. Because like the Larry Review was Aladdin themed, and the spring play for the youth group was Aladdin.
Right.
So we were able to take those backdrops and literally flip them to fit onto a stage, and it was a huge help.
Huge.
To the both groups.
Right. Right.
So it was fun. Yeah. Love that kind of stuff.
Okay. So rewinding a little bit, tell me a little bit about when you gave yourself the green light to allow your creativity to help support your family, basically.
Okay. Well, it's funny is, so for 20 years I did cakes.
Yes.
And cupcakes and sweets and stuff like that, which is really funny because you talk about things I can't do. I can do all kinds of baking. I cannot cook a chocolate chip cookie.
You've
saved my life. It's like the unicorn of the baking world for me. I can't do it. But anyway, I had gotten off my mission. I served out in Tennessee for the LDS church. Came home. I loved to create, and I wasn't a big baker at the time, but I started watching a baking show, Carlos's Bakery, back east, and I just loved it. And so I was like, oh, I think I can do that. And there you go. That's the thing. I think after my mission, I came home thinking it's worth a try. Like everything is worth a try.
Right.
The worst thing that could happen is you fail.
Right.
And then so that kind of became my motto is just try. And
I mean, because I could watch Carlos's baking and it wouldn't have turned out that way.
Well, my first few cakes were a little scary, really scary, but it developed, and I started doing for friends and family, and then I started doing weddings. And then when I got married, and he moved me to Colorado, and I didn't have any friends, and so I was like, well, I'm just going to dive in, and I put myself out there in the wedding world, and I started making wedding cakes to give me something creative to do, because I didn't have a lot of friends. I mean, it was just like a new world for me, and that was where, and I had some wedding cakes that failed, and it was a very big learning experience, but it introduced me to a whole world in Colorado before I moved back here that I just got involved in weddings.
Right. I remember seeing your posts.
Wedding designs. I even got into publicating a magazine. And my husband, props to him, because he's that guy that's just like, if you can dream it, do it. And he just supports me. He never tells me, well, what about this? Or what about the risks? He's always just like, go for it.
Because he trusts you.
Maybe. That, or he just realizes he's married to an
or he knows
woman.
He has to trust.
He doesn't really have a choice. But yeah, I mean, like with my wedding magazine publication, he was just like, well, you've done the research and you've got a small handful of vendors that are going to support you. And so I published a little tiny, it was about this size. That's my first wedding pamphlet. And then when I left in 2020, I was distributing over 5 or 6 counties on the Western Slope.
Wow.
Printing up to 5,000 copies. It was great.
That's
I loved
business.
it. It was big. It was, yeah. So it was really hard to turn away from that,
but that was your green light.
That came from, yeah. It was my, like, what was the worst thing that could happen? Right? So yeah, baking, and they just opened up the world to me. Like, okay, I'm probably gonna fail at this and that, and I'm gonna. Even 20 years into baking, I had cakes that did not turn out.
Right.
And I just had to be like, you know what? I did my best. I tried.
I can say that about some of my cakes.
Yeah. That was my like, what's the worst that could happen? I owe someone back money that they paid me for a cake.
So did that ever make you feel like quitting? Like, I can't do this. I'm done.
No.
I've got to find something else.
No, that's not me. I don't. I just keep going. I push through.
I can see that.
Yeah, I do. I push through.
My next question was who believed in you, but I think you've already answered that.
Yes.
Your husband.
And 110%.
Your people.
Yeah. My parents too. My parents, like my brother Jason, he's actually funny. He just goes, what are you not afraid to try? He's like, you've even skydived. He's like, most people don't skydive. And I'm like, what's the worst that could happen? I don't come back?
I skydived,
you know,
and I loved it, but I don't know if I would do it now.
I don't know. It was just, yeah, my family has always supported me, even before I was married. But my husband, like literally everything. If I come home and I say, hey honey, we're going to tear down this wall in our house. So he just kind of goes, okay. Yeah. And he's never...
Husbands, take
never,
note.
ever told me no. He never has. Especially when it comes to, like, my desires and my dreams and stuff.
Right.
He's just like, okay, let's do it.
And your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Kids are the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see, I mean, I've been at the dance studio when you've pulled up with your girls, and you didn't know we were inside dancing while I was watching. But you girls were outside painting, and your girls were just right there with you, and you trusted them to do, you showed them your vision, I think.
Yep.
And then they just went for it, and you trusted them. Yeah. And they trusted you.
And then they get in the car and like, oh, Mom, that pink heart looks horrible. And I'm like, I think it looks great.
Great.
I'm like, there's a difference between a $30 window painting and a $3,000 mural. Like, take it into perspective. Is it perfect? No. But it's a window painting.
But it was awesome.
Like,
we saw it from the inside looking out.
That's so funny.
It was so awesome because you could see the relationship you had with your girls. You could see that you were teaching them and they were learning, and you guys were doing this together. Yeah. And it was awesome.
Yeah. Well, I love pulling my kids into stuff. We went on an Alaska cruise this last summer, and I've always wanted to go. My husband's always wanted to go, but I told my kids, I'm like, hey, if you want to go, you're going to have to step up and help. And so we spent the whole last winter, putting together rock kits, thousands and thousands of rock kits. But it was so fun because every box we would finish, my kids would be like, oh, we just paid off Dyson's ticket, and we just paid off Kaylee's ticket.
They had their little
and it was like a little, and I love seeing that in my kids.
Oh, you're teaching them something huge.
So and the same thing is like, so Alaska was probably unattainable, right? But if we work together and do it.
And you had a great time?
We had a blast.
Loved the cruise?
Oh, yeah. Other than by day 7, I was done with the cruise, but.
Okay, so switching gears a little bit, tell me about your job now with the Office of Tourism. This is a very recent job for you.
Yeah, I was hired on this last fall. Came on for events just to kind of, the events were already established and great.
As you can see with the calendars, Yeah,
the team here has already spent years and years building events, but there was no one really to head up the department, and so that's where I came in. So I'm just kind of putting putty in the little holes that things were falling through, and the events are already super successful.
Right.
Just a little tweaking here and a little tweaking there.
I know when you first got your job, you put out, or maybe this was a conversation we had. I know you put out a survey, but we also had a conversation. You were wanting to get the communities. You wanted to know how the community, the locals, actually felt about these events. How has that worked out for you? Has it changed from what the events were to what they're becoming?
A little bit of both. Some of the feedback that I got back was that they loved the events that were already established. They just wanted them to be changed a little tiny bit. And we are trying to do that. Like, for example, the street fairs. We all love the street fairs, and they come down, they offer us a little bit of variety as locals to not have, the same food options every day. Right. Especially like balloons and tents, perfect example.
That's my biggest thing.
Woohoo,
what food trucks are coming.
Food trucks are coming in. Just because we are used to our downtown businesses. But with the Office of Tourism, our goal is to pull in people who aren't from the community into Kanab. And we were having our street fairs open during the evenings. One of the things that I heard is, okay, so the street fair's here and it's bringing people here, but then they're not downtown eating and they're not downtown shopping. Right. So we're trying to close our fair earlier so that they head downtown. Oh. Just little things, like tiniest little tweaks like that. But we want to make the community feel like if you're putting up with our events, we want to make sure that you're getting some of the benefits from the events as well. So just little things like that.
Awesome.
Our 4th of July is actually mentioned more than once at the state level for having one of the best events.
Really?
Of the 4th of July.
That's huge.
Because our alumni, our community comes back because it's become this whole thing.
I love it.
So my part of that is just listening to those little things and then doing the legalities to make it come to play. Like it's not just as easy as saying, okay, well, we're going to go one more block. It's visiting.
It's a lot more to that.
It's visiting the homes that now that affects, and running it by emergency services and law enforcement and the Utah Department of Transportation. Like you have to do a bunch of little
things that people don't realize. Adding one more block to the parade route actually takes.
Another big push that we've been because the 4th of July is such a big parade, we, as the Office of Tourism, because we're the ones that put on the parade and we take that liability very seriously, is we are starting in 2024. Parades are one way instead of two, which is going to be a huge adjustment.
Right.
We're like, okay, we're adding on a block. We're going one way.
I think that's fine. I think that's great.
Right down the middle.
Right down the middle.
Right down the middle. So, and putting into place some of the things that the bigger cities already have in play because of the crowds.
Right.
You know, we should have walkers that are keeping the kids back.
Right.
And just little things,
Safety.
because we don't want that headline. Like,
Right.
we wanted to keep events the small town feel, but realizing that we're no longer
growing.
a small town. And our events are huge.
Right. I agree.
So,
I agree.
just a little adjusting. So that's
okay,
where I
so
come into play.
let's talk about that a little bit. As somebody who grew up here, you and me both, how do you feel about Kanab growing?
Love-hate. It's a love-hate thing. It really is. Like, I love when we start having, like, we're like, oh, you know, Kanab's growing too fast. I love having more options here, for things here. Would I love a Walmart down the street? No, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
But there's like that hard common ground type
I get
thing.
it.
You can't say, oh, we want growth only in these little spots and not in other ways.
I mean, you and I are kind of in the same boat where I work for the Office of Tourism. I'm a real estate agent.
Right.
So it's not like if somebody was to walk into my office, I would not help them because their goals are different than what I would like them to be. Yeah. So, and I get that the same for you. But I'm happy with the growth of Kanab.
Overall.
Yeah.
I think it's brought more.
I do.
And I feel like for the most part, the people who come here, well, perfect example, I was just talking to the owner of the e-bikes.
Okay.
About Balloons and Tunes coming up, which is coming up right on the corner.
Right.
And I was like, hey, we're going to have the glow down Center Street. And he goes, the glow is why I moved to Kanab. Just the glow.
Really?
He's like, I came into town. Center Street was closed off for these, for balloons? He says, like, and I was like, I am going to be here. I'm going to live here.
And he opened up the e-bikes, and there he is.
E-bikes.
Well, okay, so
I love that.
Should we talk about Balloons and Tunes for a little bit, since we're on that subject?
Yeah. Balloons and Tunes coming around the corner.
Here you go. Here's a little pamphlet.
Yep. All of our pilots, we have over 40 balloons coming this year, which is our max. It's bursting at the seams at this point. Yeah.
What did it start out as? Do you know how many?
I don't know. I know.
And what year is
I know when they hit, that's this year's.
But what annual year is this?
10th year.
Oh, okay, so it's a big one.
10th year. Yeah, this is our 10-year anniversary.
Okay.
And like my teammate Linnell said, 10 years, that's a successful event.
Yeah.
It's been wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's grown. And it's had years where it's been snowed out. And it's had years where the winds have been too high, and yet people still come back. So we came back from Colorado to visit during Balloons and Tunes one year, and it was one of the years that the balloons didn't fly.
Okay. And
so we're driving out of town, and my kids are like, well, we're going to come back next year, right, Mom? Because they still went to the street fair.
Right.
They still went to the glow, even though they didn't do the
balloons.
The balloon part. They had the torches down Main Street, and my kids, you could feel the heat off of the torches. It was just, you know, it was magical. And my kids, as we're literally leaving town, they're like, and we're coming back again next year, right, Mom? And I'm like, okay. And I love that about the Balloons and Tunes, especially with it being an off-season event.
Right, right.
It's kind of like, oh, we are still alive in the winter.
Right.
So
okay. That being said, I don't feel like our winters are like they used to be. No. I mean, you used to drive through Kanab and there was like nobody but you. Yeah. Desolate roads in the winter, and then all of a sudden spring hit and boom, we were busy.
Packed.
But now I feel like it's a continuous, I mean, it does slow down, but it still is a continuous stream of people coming and going.
Yes.
And,
I mean, town literally closed up, and
I don't feel like it is now either.
Mm-hmm.
Which is,
it slows down,
a good thing.
But it's not closed. And the people who are newer to Kanab, they don't know that part.
Right, right.
So Balloons and Tunes started because of that. They were like, okay, this is the slowest season.
What can we do?
What can we do to just give them a perk in the winter? And so Balloons and Tunes was born, and it has done its job. Hotels are selling out for Balloons and Tunes. Restaurants open up just for Balloons and Tunes. Yeah. So if it's doing its job, then that's great.
Success.
Yeah.
10 years of success.
10 years of success.
Switching gears again.
Okay.
Why do you love living in Kanab? Why do you love raising your family here in Kanab?
Because it still does feel like a small town. The first school year we were back here, you know, bring my kids. And I'm like, hey, so it was when the elementary was still up here by the courthouse. Here's these houses along the way as you walk to school that you could literally just walk into and say, I need help. And I knew that they'd be taken care of. And I loved that. In fact, Harriet Perkins was doing crosswalk, here. And one day my youngest needed to go potty, and she's standing there waiting for the light to turn. And Harriet goes, hurry, just go jump in my Razor and I'll drive you to my house and you can potty. And this is a complete stranger to my daughter.
To your child, right?
And she's like, no, I can't. And Harriet calls me and she's just like, I just told your daughter to get her butt in my Razor and I'm going to take her to go potty. Can you let her know I'm okay? And I'm like, okay, Harriet was, when I was a little kid, she was in my neighborhood. Harriet's okay. And I love that she knew how to get a hold of me to tell me that she was taking care of my kid. I love that.
Right.
I absolutely love it.
Right.
And my son, another fun small town thing too, is my son, when he got here, went to school, and one of the teachers called me and he was like, now I know you've been gone a while, Cam, but I have a feeling that you don't talk like this at your house. He's like, your son's got a mouth like a sailor. And I was like, oh, really? This is good to know. So I told my son, and I'm like, hey, just so you know that we'd like you to keep your standards that you have in your home and take it to school too. And he's like, what? I'm like, oh, I've heard. And he's like, this is why we don't want to live in Kanab, because it's such a small town. I'm like, but that's why I love it. Because he wasn't being forceful. The teacher wasn't being like grouchy about it. He was just saying, I know what the family you come from, and I know you have higher standards than this. So I was able to call it. I love Kanab that way.
I do too. I love it when my kids are like, how do you know?
How do you know that?
Like, I just
But it makes
know.
you wonder, what did
I
my
just
parents
know.
about me that they chose not to?
No, because we didn't do anything that they needed to know about,
that's
right?
I forgot about that. No. I love Kanab for that reason. And one of the reasons I'm involved in events with like Larry View and proms for that. Growing up, I had women in the community that I looked up to because they made everything beautiful.
I can think of probably,
Chamberlain, and they would touch, and it was like they just sprinkled magic, and it was done. It was beautiful. And when Kane County contacted me to take over Miss Kane County.
Here's another one of your hats.
Here's the thing.
Yes.
At Miss Kane County, and at first I was like, oh my gosh, that's so much work. And it literally, I just sat there and I just thought, you know what? I remember those women, and they did it for us. I don't know what. I don't think they got paid. I don't know. I don't remember. I just remember that they always took everything by the horns and just made it amazing for the kids, proms, everything else. And so I thought, okay, well maybe that's my turn.
Right.
It's my turn to be that lady that people call and say, we need a dog built.
And you are that.
I'd be like,
you are that lady.
And I go down and I spray foam and I carve out a dog and I paint it.
Yeah.
And I'll do that. And I was like, this is my chance to now be that lady for someone else in the community. And I've loved doing Miss King County. I wasn't a pageant girl.
Right. I'm trying to get my girls. They're not pageant girls either, but
that was the thing and the program's changed too.
Yeah.
So, in my mind when I was a kid, it was all about like their talent and how good they looked in these dresses. And we changed some of that last year. Like, if your talent is basketball, then highlight basketball.
Right.
Do a highlight reel because
you.
I don't do basketball. I can't chew gum and walk across the court at the same time. So that's a talent that they have that maybe other girls don't have.
Right.
I told the girls, you don't have to wear stilettos in your evening gown if you're more comfortable in cowboy boots or tennis shoes.
Yeah.
That's what we want to see. We want to see you, not this perfect evening gown person. And we did. We had one girl that wore cowboy boots, and we had one girl that wore tennis shoes that she bedazzled. Right. And I'm like, I absolutely loved that.
I love that too.
And the Miss Kane County program is, instead of it being more focused on school scholarships, which is still a great thing, it's a service scholarship.
Oh, okay.
So when they win their title, they are committed to so many hours of service in the community.
I've seen that. Okay.
And I love that.
I love that too.
And at first I was really nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, these girls, I don't know if they're going to be. And
but it's still a scholarship they're able to utilize for college.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're providing service.
But they have jumped on it, and they literally have called me and been like, is there anything happening this month that we can be a part of? And I love that.
I love that too.
Because maybe we're raising girls that will grow up to be that lady.
Right.
That is willing to serve her community.
Right.
When asked, not just when it's convenient.
Right.
Miss King County is scheduled for August 7th.
Okay.
Of this year.
When does it begin? Like, when do you start?
The girls, so we are lining up free clinics that will start in March. to help them put together like resumes, portfolios, to kind of show them professional side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we do want to have them take it and have it be something they can utilize in college.
Right.
Or wherever they decide to go, even for
Right.
job interviews.
Well, it's a big deal.
It is.
It is a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Mhm.
And it does help when you've got those letters of recommendation
Yeah.
from commissioners or department. What is a portfolio?
Mhm.
What is it?
Mhm.
You know, we'll start clinics for that in March, and they're not required. It's just there for anybody, literally between the ages of 5 and 19,
Cool.
that they can come be a part of. Get girls out to come see, like the pageant girl. There's no such thing anymore.
Right.
It's whatever they are. That's what we want.
Right.
We want them.
Right.
There's girls out there that look at you and think, man, I wish I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you're that girl that says, yeah, you
Bring
can.
light to
Come
it.
on, come on
Mhm.
over and let me show you how.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Okay, I just have one more question for you. What is one thing you would like to tell somebody wanting to move to Kanab?
do it and embrace what Kanab is.
I love it.
Do it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the worst that could happen? What's the worst that could happen?
What's the worst that can
You
happen?
hate it, you move again.
Mm-hmm.
What's the worst that can happen? Kanab is a move of a leap of faith.
Mm-hmm.
It is small. It doesn't offer, 24 hours Chinese,
Mm-hmm.
DoorDash. It doesn't offer that. What it does have to offer far exceeds, but it doesn't.
I agree.
And you'll see that on the first time when you see Kanab flood.
That is true.
It's a big thing.
It's a
People are
big
like, I
thing.
didn't think about flooding in the desert. It happens.
It
It
happens.
happens in Kanab, but
But
no
guess
need to
what?
fear because
Guess what
they
happens?
show up in droves.
Yep.
And people that you don't even know will be out sandbagging your driveway, and that's what Kanab is about.
I agree. I want to expand on that just a little bit because if there are hardships,
Your back's covered.
yeah.
It really is. And it's not even with your homes, financially.
Mhm.
And we have the sub percentage
People you
every
don't know.
year.
People you
I'm
do know.
blown away with the high school sub percentage. I'm just like,
Mhm.
you did how raised how much,
Mm-hmm.
and where did it go? And they just, there's so many people. I know one personally that they collect money all year and they don't even count it.
Mm-hmm.
And they call up somebody and say, hey, who needs this? And they just give it.
Right.
That's what our community is built up with.
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds of these people that do more than they have to
I agree.
all year long.
You were my very first interview, and I can't thank you enough because I think you're
Thank you.
awesome,
Well, thank
and
you.
I'm super excited about this. So.
Well, we think you're pretty awesome. So
Thank you.
you're another one of those ladies that they just get happy when they see you. They can't help it.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome.